Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Rafael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. LS, good morning. How are you this day?
Good morning, Sifu. Every day's a good day.
I love that. Great energy. I love great energy, and you always have it. I am so happy that we're getting to spend this time together today because I know you a tiny little bit and we've done some stuff together. But man, this is an opportunity for me to get to know you. I love this. I'm excited. So one of the things that really intrigues me, and it has for so long, is to know about somebody's childhood. Tell me about where were you born, where'd you grow up, and who, in 3 questions, and who influenced you before the age of 10?
Oh, wow. You have no idea what you just asked.
Okay. Where were you born?
Okay. So I was actually born at the University of Oregon Hospital in Portland, Oregon. But we lived in Redmond, Oregon. Now, all my siblings were born in the Redmond Hospital. The reason I went to the University of Oregon is they, were getting to be well known. They're supposed to have this amazing care. And so my mom and dad drove up to Oregon, to Portland, and that's where I was born. And then we went back home. Wow. And I will tell you something. So the S in my name, I was named after my nurse. That's where my middle name came from.
Oh, look at
and
that.
Get this, I'll tell you something else. My daughter's middle name also starts with an S because her birth nurse was the same name as my birth nurse.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. That's pretty incredible. So let's go ahead and dive a little bit into it. Because I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think your parents named you LS.
No.
But that's what you have chosen to be known as. Would you mind sharing are you able to tell us what your full name is?
Oh,
What does
sure.
LS
I
stand
don't mind
for?
sharing it. So my name is Linda. So why do I choose LS? Well, I found there's another author that is also Linda Kirkpatrick. There's a singer that is Linda Kirkpatrick. And in meetings, there are so many Lindas, we never know which one we're really being addressed as. So when I do LS, everybody knows automatically who it is. I know that they're talking to me, and so I don't interrupt anybody.
I love that. I love that. I guess that's why I use Sifu Rafael, right? Because really my name is Rafael and my title is Sifu. But because I've been teaching martial arts for so long, I figured I connected that way and differentiate myself. So thank you, LS, for sharing that tidbit with us. So who would you say influenced you before the age of 10?
There were so many people. You asked where I grew up. I grew up everywhere. We moved 2 to 4 times a year. My dad was putting in the power lines across the whole state of Oregon. And there were so many different substations where they were hooking up and setting up. So I never grew up in one area, let alone one town. I even lived in Washington for a while, lived in Montana, which I loved. I was up by Glacier National Park. And so my influence came from a lot of people. But the people around me all the time was my family. And I really think my grandmother, even though she was in another state, she's the one I wanted to be like. She was fun. She was loving. She was strong, very competitive. But she loved people.
Love that. Love that. So your grandmother, even though she wasn't near you, still had a lot of influence on you, and you wanted to be like her, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
What was it
100% balance.
besides her being funny and so forth? What was it about her?
When you were close to her, you just felt the love. Not
Mm,
necessarily so much like, "Oh, I love you, you're so wonderful," but you just felt this love that filled the air, and my grandfather was the same way. I
mm,
had never been to a funeral before, and she passed away just just before I turned 13.
mm.
And when we went to the funeral, there were all these people there. I was actually upset. Who are these people to come and take my time away from my grandmother
Mm,
and my family? I didn't mind sharing with the family, but there were so many people. The church was full downstairs, the church was full upstairs, and there were just as many, if not more, people outside. Same with
wow.
my grandfather.
Mm,
And I had no idea that she had that much of an impact on other people or on the community. And being that young and not really understanding about people, I didn't realize at the time the reason there were so many people there was because of the same reason I loved her, was how she approached people. She didn't let people walk over her. It wasn't that she was a pushover, but it's kind of like being around you, Sifu. You're just this kind person who just has this, I don't know if aura is the right word, but you just have this air around you that shows compassion and kindness and love, and but don't take advantage of me. Don't try to pull the wool over my eyes or be unkind. But you're there, you're giving, and yeah. I am so sorry. I just lost sound with you. Nope, I still can't
my
hear you.
fault. My fault. I
Oh,
unmuted myself.
oh,
So yes, even Mandy says you're muted, Sifu. You're mute, Sifu. But Mandy does say love and hugs for a great day, my friends. And Mandy is such an incredible human being herself. Good, beautiful morning, Sifu and LS. Yeah,
beautiful
and I'm
morning
back.
to you, Mandy. And thank you for the message. We had a lovely conversation. 3 o'clock her time, and I
Mm.
got it about 5 my time.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So you and by the way, thank you for saying those very nice words about me. One of the things that I've learned a long time ago is that you and it does say something for some people when they say treat others like you want to be treated, and there's
Mhm.
so much truth in that, yet people don't understand it fully
Right.
because they want to be treated nice. And they'll only treat certain people nice, but other people not so nice.
Yeah. My grandfather would say that I've never met a stranger, only a friend I haven't known before. And the
Mm,
first time I heard that, I thought that was just the most wonderful thing I'd ever heard. Then a
yeah.
few years ago, I actually saw the post on somebody's social media. I don't even remember where, but one of the comments under it was, "What does that even mean?" And I was
Mm,
shocked. I was shocked that somebody wouldn't understand what it was. And I think perhaps because of the family I grew up with, I understood it right away. So, yeah, I just quite didn't know how to process that. And so I
mm,
took that to heart to explain to people that you are a stranger to other people that you haven't met. How would you want to be treated? How
mm,
would you want them to treat you? As you being as strangers, we're all strangers until we meet each other. Um,
mhm.
I guess that kind of goes into the book that I'm starting because I'm just remembering it's like, oh, where did I hear that before? Yeah, I wrote it in my book. because it's talking about meeting strangers and talking to strangers. And in fact, when my husband and I got married, I'm in the store and I'm talking to the people in line, and we get out and he goes, "How do you do that?" And I go, "Do what?" "How can you just talk to people?" I go, "Because they're people. I have no problem starting up a conversation."
It's very interesting because you just brought someone up who's made an impact in your life. Yet before you were connected with your husband, you guys were strangers,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. We actually met in the fire department. He was sitting in a chair, and I walked in, just moved to the area. So, I wanted to work on another rescue place. I was certified as an EMT, had, basic trauma life support. And so what are we doing right now in this new town and new state we're in? We're working on the volunteer fire department. But it was, I saw him and it's like, okay. And there were a lot of people there, but I never saw him and thought, oh, wow, there's a man I want to marry. In fact, I'd just gone through a divorce, left a toxic relationship, pulled my kids away from a hurtful situation. And so I was not looking for a boyfriend, looking to get married, anything like that. In fact, he had to ask me 3 times to marry him before I finally did that. Seriously.
So even you and I were strangers.
Oh, yeah.
And we met through the CLA, or Connected Leaders Academy. But let's go back into, because you've unfolded so many different things, and I appreciate that.
Peel off
But
the layers.
I got so many layers. You and I are both big onions, right? Because we're onions, when people peel the layers, there is tears sometimes, right?
Yes.
So
Oh, man, this
tell
week
me,
too.
tell me a little bit about your teenage years. How was that, and what was the influences that you found there as well?
Wow. I'm not sure I really had influences in my teenage years. Starting at 12 years old, actually, I think it was 10 years old, I met a woman doctor. Now, I'm old enough that women doctors were not common. I mean, it was a really strange thing. And I met this woman doctor, and a lot of women I had seen in business, because I was still coming out of the age where children are seen, they're not heard. And it's better if they're seen in the other room, not the room that the adults are in. So here I am at this woman doctor. My mom thought I needed to see a woman because I was getting older. And I loved her. She was kind. She took time to talk to me, not like most of the other adults who want to know something about me, but ask my parents, want to know my opinion, but ask my parents what my opinion was. She actually talked to me, and she made me feel comfortable, and she was kind. And it's like, it was at that moment I wanted to be a doctor in the worst way. I wanted to be a doctor who helped children. And the other thing she did is I told her about these big leaves we had, because I was living in Estacada, Oregon, the Willamette Valley, you do have huge leaves. And she'd never seen anything like that. So when we got home, I went through and I picked up all these leaves. It was full time. They were starting to turn colors. And I put them in a bag and I let them dry. And then when I went to my next appointment, I had to beg my mom to bring the leaves. I said, "Mom, she told me to bring them." And reluctantly, my mom gave in. And so I brought the bag of leaves. She wasn't sure. And the doctor, her name was Dr. Chamberlain. She loved them. She couldn't believe they were so big. She'd never seen anything like that. And it was wonderful. And she says, "I'm going to tell others about this." And I thought, that's nice. Nobody tells anything that I do. Well, come back to the third appointment. She has this big desk like you used to see with a glass top. Underneath the glass top it was laid out. All of my leaves were laid out, and the glass was pressing down on them. And she took me to her office to show her where she put the leaves. And she said, everybody I see, I make them come in here and look at how these leaves are, that they're so big. Made me feel so proud and so worthy at that moment, because that was not anything I really felt growing up, and not to the fault of my parents or family. I do have ADHD, so my brain thinks differently, looks at things differently, takes things differently. I've also got HSP, which is highly sensitive person. You know, everybody has letters after their name, you know, whether they want them or not. But feeling unworthy and being the last born child, not just the last born child in my family, but almost the last born in all of my relatives. Plus, I was so tiny. When I was in the 5th grade, people thought I was just starting to go to 1st grade. That's
Really?
how small I was. So people treated me for my size, not for my age or for my mental abilities. So there are a lot of things going on there. So for someone to do something that totally amazing to me, which is probably nothing to her. I mean, it was just the most wonderful thing anyone had ever done for me. So that carried me through my teenage years, because we still moved. You know, to have one person that influenced me, there were so many people that influenced me. In fact, I'm in the book called Impact of Influence by Chip Baker. He has several volumes of them. I believe I'm in volume 6. And I talk about that there's never one person only that influences me. It's several people I meet along the way.
It's a beautiful life that we can have if we pay attention.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
It's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And one of the things that Mandy said is that she loves the fact that you still remember her name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
incredible, right? When you
She's
can
in here.
remember somebody. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's but you know the fact that she took the time and she said to you, I'm actually going to share this with other people, that, and you like, okay, I believe you, but then when you actually saw it, what a huge impact.
Yeah.
One of the things, because I do teach children and adults and everybody in between, uh, I if somebody brings me something, I display it, I put it out, I share with them. And one of the things, it's very interesting because there's a little girl that comes in and always she runs and she goes, Sifu, and runs and into my arms and gives me a big hug. And then the other kids look at her and they're like, wait a minute, I want to hug them too. So they run over. So it's kind of funny. So I'm like, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate the hugs. They mean so much to me. And then they walk away. And a lot of times they'll give me the little heart shape, and
Oh,
it's interesting because we're taking the time, just like that doctor did with you, to take the time to acknowledge, right? And so many adults, and one of the things that you said earlier is, back in the day, kids were meant to be seen, not heard, and not seen in the same room as adults. That that always bothers me when I hear
yeah. And it was so, I guess the word confound. The
that.
first time I saw some of my friends who were allowed to be in the conversation, not just in the room, but allowed to be in the conversation with other adults. And it's like, how do you do that? And they're like, how do we do what? How come you get to sit at the table with the adults?
Mm,
Because we're always allowed to sit at the table with adults. And it was like, interesting,
mm,
interesting thought.
mm.
How the world has changed.
Oh yeah, it is very interesting. One of the things that we can do is we can tell the kids nowadays, "Come sit with us. Come,
Yeah.
let me hear your story. How was your day?" But actually, because kids don't want to always tell what's going on until you actually become more inquisitive, right? If you say, "How was your day?" They're like, "Okay, you're
Until
fine."
they know that you really do care about them.
Mhm.
And even then, they're afraid to share things because they don't want to disappoint you.
So Mandy wants us to both hug her. So Mandy, we
There
will.
you go.
Next time we
Put
see
your
you.
hug. You do that. You put your right hand on your left shoulder. Come on, Sifu. Put your left hand on your right shoulder and squeeze. We're giving you hugs.
Hugs, and I felt the hug back. So thank you for that.
That's awesome.
So along the way, you say so many different people influenced you and the decisions, and you talked about books and so forth. And we want to get into what you do, because across the screen it says writers2readers.com. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. And I'm going to give you a chance to even do a little commercial for yourself,
All right.
to promote you, right? Because that's what we're here. I want people to know more about you and how incredible you are. Moving along, your teenage years, getting into your 20s and so forth. Of course, you've met more people, right?
Oh,
Because the more we go through life, the more people we get to meet. But we don't always necessarily talk about the negative, because we're always looking to be, and we should look at the positive. But for me, it's been the people who've hurt me the most, who've actually shaped me the most as well. I'm just curious if that's happened to you as well, because you
I did.
talked about a toxic relationship.
I did, didn't I? So
You
I'll tell
did.
you what happened, because, and this can be something for parents to think about, but also for those who are teenagers. Because I felt so unworthy, and we moved so much that I always felt left out. You talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. I was terrified of missing out. I wanted to be into everything because I always felt like I was missing out. Part of it has to do with the way my brain works, but part of it is because I saw others doing all these wonderful, amazing things and wondered why I couldn't. Part of that goes into limiting thinking, but that's for another time. But so I decided one day I was tired of being different. I was tired of not being included. I mean, I had friends who would not let me go places with them because they were going to do things like get drunk, take drugs. They didn't want me involved in that because they liked me the way I was, and they didn't want me to change. But they didn't realize how much I was hurting by not being included. So I did the most foolish thing I have ever done in my whole life. And if you have regrets, this would be a regret. I decided I wanted to be like everybody else, and I was no longer going to be me. And I took, you kind of take one step and one step, just kind of test the waters. Well, nothing's going to go bad when you take that one step or two step because you're being cautious about it, And then it was like, okay, nothing bad happened, so here I go. And that's where I left all the things that I knew that were worthy, that were right, that were true, and I left them behind. I just kind of kicked them to the curb and said, I don't need you anymore. I'm tired of being alone. I want to be like everybody else. Well, that's toxic thinking right there. They call it stinking thinking. That's more than stinking thinking. That's deadly thinking.
Well, I just want to tell you, Dr. Oliver T. Reed says, love you guys. And
I love him too.
yeah, he's incredible as well. Go ahead. And that's thinking, which is deeper than that, right? When you let go of the good to go after something shiny and because you think it's better.
Well, and that's it. I didn't, loneliness is a horrible thing because it's the one thing that can make you do things that you really don't want to do because you don't want to be lonely anymore.
Right.
Learning how to deal with loneliness in a positive, very constructive way is going to help you through life so much more than anything else you're going to do. Because loneliness is the one thing that's going to take you places you don't want to go. And so you need to build tools. You need to build strength. You need to find that armor that's going to help protect you when that happens. We're all going to go through loneliness at some point. You can be in a room with 1 million people and people who say they're all your friends, and you can still feel lonely. So what do you do when that happens? What do you tell your mind? This is where capturing those thoughts make a big difference. I couldn't figure out for years how to capture thoughts. And I started doing it was a Bible study at night where I just listened to the study. And it was talking about when you're meditating and these thoughts come through your mind that aren't the thoughts you want, you say to them, okay, I acknowledge you're there. I don't want you there, so I'm going to just say goodbye. And you kick it to the curb. Then it's going to come back and say, wait a minute, I've been your thought for so long. We're best friends. And you just say, no, go away. And you keep doing that until one day you're going to realize those thoughts aren't there. So that's how I got introduced into capturing your thoughts, is acknowledge them, because if you don't, they're going to keep coming back and they're going to get worse and they're going to bring friends. So you don't want those kind of friends and you don't want that thought. So you capture it. You say, I've got you. Don't come back anymore. And you go on. And that's made a huge difference. That was kind of my first real step into mindset. Only I didn't know it at the time.
No, he had no idea at that time, because you're in it, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know what mindset was at the time when I heard that.
Well, it's and I thank you for bringing that up, because so many people only started learning about mindset, I would say, really knowing more about it maybe in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was called different things, but mindset has been around since caveman time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but it was just not amplified.
Yeah.
It wasn't amplified as it is today.
Well,
so
think
LS.
Sorry, I was going to say,
go for it.
What the Bible says. I mean, look, it was written ancient times ago, and what does it say? Take control of your thoughts. Don't put good thoughts in your head, not bad thoughts. Don't think of the things that are hurting you. Think of the good things. What is, can't think of what people call it, but it says, think on these things, and they're all good things. Napoleon Hill talks about mindset. A lot of the greats talk about mindset. The Stoics talk about mindset. So like you said, it's been around a long time. I think we as humans finally are starting to really understand on a whole just how damaging our thoughts can be, or how uplifting and wonderful they can be.
Without a doubt. When you consider people don't always intend to hurt you.
Right.
But sometimes it's their actions, the words they use, the communication skills that they lack. And this is why I want to share this with you. This is the video that we have an event coming up in New York. And I just want to share it with everybody, because you're talking about the impact of words. Take a look.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. Sifu Rafael, master instructor and founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to help you reach your full potential. Dr. Oliver T. Reed, The international multi-best-selling author and motivational speaker, known as the Writing Coach, will help you craft your messages with precision. Jose Escobar, a nationally recognized speaker and leader, will guide you in mastering personal development and leadership skills. This is more than just an event. It's a game-changing, skill-building experience. Walk away with communication prowess that transforms your personal and professional life. Speaking prowess, where communication becomes your superpower. Reserve your seat now.
Words. Yeah, right. It's definitely when you connect great minds together, and if you think about you and me, the way we've been connected, and I also want to get into you even allowed me to contribute to your magazine. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Everything that we do on a daily basis, it's the communication we have, and you talked about God, the communication we have with God every day. I know I do every day, many times. And the cool thing is he's never busy. I don't get a busy tone when I call.
Right. He's right there.
Always available, right? He's always
Even
there
when we
listening.
yell at him, "Where are you? Why aren't you here?" He goes, "I am here.
I am.
You walked away from me. You turned your eyes the other direction."
Mhm, mhm. So talk to me, because you got out of a toxic relationship, but you didn't go, oh, I'm going to be with this person because I'm going to be in a toxic relationship. This is something we don't look for, but we find ourselves in it. And I'm sure it was peachy king at first, but it
No,
became something else, right? Would you
no,
mind just giving us a quick glimpse into even how did you get into that, and then how'd you even get out of it? Because it's not easy.
no, it's okay. It wasn't peachy keen.
Mm.
All the
But at
warning
first it
signs.
was. It must have
No,
been, no? Not even
no,
the initial courting?
it didn't. It didn't matter because I wanted to be like the rest of the world. And this was how, in my mind, how the rest of the world acted and behaved and treated each other.
Mm.
All the warning signs were there from the very beginning. And I chose. I didn't ignore them. They weren't there. I saw them and I chose to
Mm.
not listen.
Right.
And I allowed myself to be deceived. Now, my sister and I have talked about it because she also got in a toxic relationship. And she says most of it was because we were very naive. We didn't know how the world worked, which
Mm.
was a part of it. I didn't know people could be that,
Mm.
I'm just going to say that way. I didn't know people thought that way. But there were still warning signs, but I jumped into it anyways. Then you get pregnant, you get married. And even at that, one thing I said is don't marry me just because I'm pregnant. If you don't love me, I don't want this child brought into a family that isn't loved.
Mm.
But I didn't know people lied about things like that. I didn't know people lied. They said they loved you, but didn't mean it. I mean, you never say you love. That's a very powerful word. And I didn't know people used it as a tool to get what they wanted.
Right.
So that was naive. But once I'm in there, I've seen other people just jump from one marriage to the next marriage to the next marriage, and I didn't want to do that. Even when there was infidelity, I wanted to leave, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And you could always look back, it's like, well, I should have done this because then everything would have been perfect. You don't know that.
Right.
You don't know if you wouldn't have got into a different situation or if it would have made things worse. You have no idea.
Mm.
So you're in this, and it got to the point, if it wasn't for my kids, I may have still stayed. But I saw what was happening to them, and I didn't want that to happen. that I didn't want them to grow up thinking this was normal. This was okay to be treated that way. And I had no idea what was going on in the background because the whole family hid it from me. And my kids were told to keep it from me, to not tell me, or I was going to be disappointed in them. They used me as the bad guy. They used me
Wow.
as the tool so they could keep doing what they were doing. And when I found out years later what was really going on, even when I finally went to the police and let them know what was going on, I couldn't go to the police station. My new husband at the time had to take the kids because there was to be no influence from me at all. And so he took the kids to the police station. They gave their video statements and they came home. And I didn't ask them what they said. It's none of my business. And I knew that I couldn't ask them if anything was ever to hold up in court, if we ever had to go to court.
Right.
But years later, one of them told me things that happened, just a few things. And I have to say, knowing where my mind was at the time, if I had known it, I would have made some really bad choices then. So it's probably good I didn't know. But how do you get out of that? I honestly had people praying for me, and I was praying. I did what I should have done in the first place, stay connected with my Heavenly Father. I call him Abba Father, because that's what he asks us to call him. And that's more than just a dad that gave birth to you. That is the Father who cares for you and takes care of you and teaches you and trains you and instructs you and is there all the time for you. So me walking away from that, I must have just broke his heart. But so through that prayer, in the mail, I get a magazine. I never ordered this magazine. It came in from Focus on the Family. And I just, I did Red Book and other things, McCall's, Good Housekeeping, all those kind of magazines. But this one came in the mail. It's a free thing. And there was an article in there about why divorced women go back to their husbands. And I didn't realize how common that was. But the number one reason was because they don't know how to financially provide for themselves. And I thought that's a really stupid reason to go back. So that was step one. You better make sure you know how to financially care for yourself. So it was just little things that kept coming in. At the time, a friend of mine that I was working with, she had just finished up a divorce, and she said, they have lawyers who help women and you don't have to pay for them. And it's like, well, that's cool. So it's kind of a pro bono thing or something that they do. So I had a lawyer that I could afford, and I was able to get through that. And it was just one thing after another. Another friend did this. Somebody I worked with was mentioning this. I saw something somewhere, waiting in a doctor's office, probably read something somewhere. So there were all these things that were being poured into me at just the right time to help me get to where I needed to be. And if I know for a fact that if I did not have people praying for me, if I was not praying myself, I never would have gotten out, and I never would have gotten my children away from that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. That's a lot. Let's talk about something good.
We're about to. But, and Mandy says, thank you for sharing your heart, and she just loves you even more.
Mandy, I love you too.
You did say you didn't understand it, and there's no reason why someone should go back into a toxic relationship, and it's because of money. And money does make people even stay in a relationship because they don't see a way out. And we can move on right from here, but a lot of people say, we're doing it for our kids. Meanwhile, the kids are like, please get divorced because you're making it worse for us, right? Because they're fighting all the time.
Well, and if there is absolutely no way for reconciliation, and in this instant, there absolutely was not. This person chose a lifestyle that was damaging to a lot of people,
Mm.
and it was not going to get better. It did not get better.
Mm.
So if there's absolutely no way, you need to get out. If there's damage hurting you or your kids, get out.
Mhm.
Find a women's shelter, find somebody somewhere. And it may take a little bit, but you can do it. Don't give up. And yeah, it's hard because then there's things you have to put into place to protect yourself, to protect your children. You know,
Mhm.
you're always looking over your shoulder. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is because you never know what they're going to try and do. This
Mhm.
is a horrible situation to be in. Best thing to do, don't get there in the first place.
Mm.
Don't think that you need approval and love from other people, no matter who they are.
Yeah.
And
Listen to your signs, right?
I did not love myself. I didn't know that. I
Mm.
loved my life. I loved who I was. But when I didn't know how to be by myself alone, makes a huge difference. I've heard other women say the same thing, is I don't like being lonely. Nobody does.
Mhm.
So what do? Now I have no problem. It's like, fine, I get lonely, go find somebody. You know, I've got friends,
Mhm.
but they're good, healthy friends and relationships. And sometimes you're going to be lonely. Get over it because the next day you won't be. You
Yeah.
know, I don't mean to be rude, but
No,
it's
you're 1,000% right. But I'm gonna give a little bit of advice for everybody. If you feel
good.
lonely, please don't go to a bar.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
meet other
That's
lonely people, and that doesn't mean it's gonna be a good mix. It may
right.
even become more toxic.
Well,
So
and don't be with somebody just because you're lonely.
that's right.
Think about, there's a lot of men and women who prey on people who are lonely, and you
Mhm.
need to protect yourself. So we need to really think about what we're doing.
Yeah. You know, I love my alone time. Love, love, love. Don't get me wrong. I love spending time with my fiance, but this is why I get up so darn early. So I'm up at anywhere
Yeah.
between 3:30 and 4:30 every day. No clocks, no nothing. And then I spend hours me doing things by myself, and I cherish those because it allows me to write, it allows me to do things. And I want to get into you because you're 22 books, right? Probably even more.
29 books, 22
Okay, look at
times
that.
international best-selling, award-winning author.
Wow.
I have awards to prove it. But yeah,
I love it.
22 bestsellers, and all within 2 years' time, actually a little less than 2 years,
Mm, that's
because
incredible.
I just pour myself into it. When you enjoy something, that's what you do, and
Mm,
I definitely
mm,
enjoy writing.
right. Yeah. So what was the catalyst? When did you actually start writing? What did you write when you were a little girl? Did you write in your teens, in your 20s? When did that really maybe you
I
started but stopped? Tell us about that.
a lot. Started and stopped so many times.
Mm,
When I was a kid, I loved to read. Then I had a teacher who discouraged that. I'm not gonna get into that. And so I didn't, but I always wanted to write because, gosh, I wanted to give other people this amazing gift of being in the story, going places I'd never gone before, thinking thoughts I'd never thought
mm,
before, wondering, is this going to happen or that going to happen? It was just intriguing. So I started writing poems, and I actually kind of copied other people's poems but put into my words, just kind of, and I didn't share that with others, but it was a way for me to learn. I didn't realize then that's what I was doing was learning, but I
mm,
wanted to write like they wrote. But I knew that submitting my stuff, everybody would know it was theirs, not mine. So that's why I never did it. One
mm,
time I did submit a poem I wrote on my own, and it got printed in a local newspaper. It was pretty cool. It was like a magazine for the
mm,
electric company. And that was really cool. That made me feel so good that, wow, that was something I did. And that's when I was in high school. And that was the last time I ever wrote. I used to
Mm.
want to write these amazing books. So I would write one chapter and that was it. It was
Mm.
like everything I thought of went in that one chapter. But part of it was I didn't have enough life experiences. I didn't have enough training, um, to go through it. So what really started my writing was in my late 50s. I had grandchildren that I absolutely loved being around, and I would
Nice.
tell them stories. We'd be in the car, and whatever song was on the radio, I was making up words for them. And my granddaughter, in fact, my granddaughter, whose book we just launched yesterday, Do Not Take My Leaves, she
Mm.
said to me, she was like 3 years old, she goes, "Grandma, sing to my mom the song you sang to me."
Mm.
And I'm like, what song did I sing to her? What is she talking about? I had no idea. And she's looking at me and she knows that something's going on. She's 3 years old. And she goes, "You sang it in the pickup." And I'm going, "What song did I sing in the pickup?" And she's talking, and as she's talking, I realized, oh, I made up words and I have no idea what song it was. I have no idea what
That's too
words I made
funny.
up. And I told her that, and she was devastated. She was like I had taken something so precious away from her. And I'm
Mm.
like, I am never doing that again. So from that moment on, I only sang to them songs that I really knew and put in their name and things they like. So if they asked me again, I would know what it was. By the way, I do not sing at all. I
Mm.
just yell. I am not a singer. In fact, when all of my grandkids were little and I would hold them in my arms and I would sing to them, they would cry. So I would quit singing and I would just hum and they would stop crying. So that's kind of the thing I am. But it went into stories. It went into bedtime stories. It went into fairy tales. I loved fairy tales as a kid, the fables and the moral of the stories.
Mm.
We moved and I couldn't do that anymore. I had to do it over the phone and it was just losing something.
Mhm.
So I paid attention to what they were doing and I started writing down stories. Then I would put them in books and you can see these. Let me get the right way. These big ones back here are from like Shutterfly, Vistaprint,
Mm.
those kind of things, the one-off books. And
Right.
I would send them to them for birthdays or just because or whatever, and they loved it. One of the books I did, I actually asked a friend of ours. She grew up with my daughter, so they're about the same age, but she's this amazing artist. And I said, "Would you please do the illustrations for this book for my kids?" Or my grandkids, and she did, and it's called Writing Frogs in the Backyard, and she
Mm.
did so well, but it's not her genre of artwork, and she goes,
Right.
"Mrs. Kirkpatrick, please don't ask me to do that again," because she's a perfectionist. She wants to give it her best, and it was
Right,
so
right.
stressful for her, and I said, "I promise I'll never do that again." So I did that for my daughter, for her 2 girls, and my
Mm.
daughter told me, "Mom, you have to get this book published." 3
Mm.
years of her telling me that before I took the plunge,
Mm.
and the plunge is I wrote these other 3 stories first, and I knew one of the stories everybody loved, put it on Amazon, nothing happened. I did what most people do, write a book,
Mm.
put it on Amazon. I didn't
Right.
have an editor, I didn't know how to pick covers, any of that stuff, I didn't know how to market,
Mhm.
and so when I heard on YouTube, I was watching this little video and this commercial came on for Life on Fire. Are your books hearing crickets on Amazon? Are they not moving? You know, and they're talking about running a business. And it's like, well, if I'm actually going to write books, I need to have a business head.
Mm.
So I joined the free mastermind they had, and it was so good that I paid.
Mm.
And at the time, my husband was out of work, and it's like, I really want this. Lord, if you want me to do this, give me the money. Well, I don't know how I had an extra payment on my credit card, but it was more than enough to pay to get started, the monthly charge
Nice.
every month. I always had just enough. And so I was able to join that way. And that just opened up this whole world,
Mm.
really opened up a world I didn't even know existed. So that's kind of a long version.
No, I love it, and the fact that you're telling people that. I love the fact that you were making up songs. I'm going to tell you, that was genius on your part because I I've done something similar. I'm not going to take credit like you did, um, but I've always written because of the words that come up along, or I'll say something and somebody will say, "What'd you say?" Like, "What did I say?" And so all of a sudden, one of the things that I think that you should continue to sing, but sing it into something, right?
Yeah,
And if you
and
ever get a
I
chance
do.
to, yeah, if you get a chance to ride with your kids, go ahead and make up a song. It's so much fun, but
Oh,
record
yeah,
it, right? Just
yeah,
record it. And we forget that we have all these tools at our hands. And the fact that you went on Life on Fire, you had Leap of Faith, and all these different things that Mandy's talking about as well. Um, it's incredible when we can just free flow, if you will, because I think free flowing is where creativity
yeah,
meets you, right?
yeah,
And that's an important aspect that we need to do, because when I start writing, I don't need the book. I need I need the name of the chapter,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
boom. And here's the crazy thing. I haven't published anything. I'm not
Really?
ready. I'm not ready.
Yeah.
And so many people have said, "Hey, do you want to be in my book?" And I'm like, "Sorry." And like, "Really? You don't want to be in my book?" I'm like, When my book comes out, then it'll be different." I said,
Yeah,
"I'm not, you're amazing. You're an amazing author, but I don't want to be in other people's books."
yeah,
And
I
people don't
understand
get
that.
that part. People don't get that. And I'm like, "That's okay. You don't have to get it. It's just me."
Yeah.
So
No,
I've
I
written
get the
probably
beauty of it.
90 books. I've probably written
I
about
got the girl sitting
90,
right there.
but they're all, in all different aspects. And I've written titles because I've woken up in the middle of the night, and God gave me a title of a
Absolutely.
book, right?
Yeah.
Or a
My golden
chapter.
hour is 3 o'clock. How about you?
Mm. Ooh, my
Yeah.
golden hour is whenever I get smacked upside the head, and it could be 1:30 in the morning to one time I got up
Yeah.
at about a quarter to 2 in the morning, and I wrote for 4 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah,
was beautiful.
it is. I have to say I have written throughout all of my life. When I go through tough times, I would write it all out. It wouldn't be what I was going through. I would just be writing. In fact, I had a book that I was writing down incidents that happened during the toxic relationship. I unpacked that box of stuff that I had because I didn't need to unpack it for a long time, and it's probably about a year into the marriage I have now, which we're be 32 years this
Wow.
November,
Congrats.
and I looked at it, and I was reading it, and I was shocked. I actually said out loud, "Why did I write this? This is all lies." What I was writing was how I
Mm,
wanted it to be, and I didn't even realize I was doing that at the time,
mhm,
you know? I wrote down this one thing happened with cattle, and it was actually kind of funny. So I wrote down the funny part of it, but I didn't write down the really horrible things that with it. So for
mm,
me, it was a way to deal with what was going on, to
mm,
release that whatever it was that had just frozen me, had captured me, held me prisoner, and it was a way to do that. I ended up throwing it away because one, there was nothing. It to me, it was nothing but lies. Was it
mm,
funny stories? Maybe, but because I could see the pain and the anguish behind it,
mm.
I just couldn't put it on paper because it was not the truth.
Right.
And even in the books I do now, I have the giving book. We're on volume 4. have co-authors writing into it. When they send me stuff, there are certain things I do not allow in there because this book has got to be for everybody.
Right.
But also because I'm a person of faith, I'm not going to let you swear in it. I'll put the little stars or whatever on the words. I'm not going to let you use God's name in vain. We'll put GAWD if that's the way you meant it. If you're talking to God, I was so mad at God. I said, God, where are you? That's different. You're having a conversation then.
That's fine.
But and I had one person who got kind of upset with me, not because I wouldn't let her use God's name in vain, but because she didn't know that's what she was doing. And so we talked about it. Like you said, you have those conversations. How do you talk about it? How do you address something? And I told her, I says, I love your story. I think it's going to be good for a lot of people, but I don't allow these in my book. And, it's my book.
That's right.
But she understood what I was saying. We talked about things of ways to work around it. And she's in volume 3. I mean, it's wonderful. I love it. So, yeah.
Tell me, you talked about volumes. You're creating books and you're bringing different authors in, right? And you're creating volumes. What made you decide to go in that route as well as an author?
Oh, this is fun. And, and it's not just authors. There are artists. They have their artwork in there. My grandson, who's autistic, he does anime work. He's been in my books. There's poems. There's funny little things. Those who know Gordon Melville, he put in there a bottle of awesome sauce with his little mean picture in it, his little avatar. I mean, it's a book that is all around. So I try to make sure that there's laughter in it, that there's love and stuff, because if it's just a heavy book, that's not good. But what started it was I got to be in somebody else's book. I didn't even know what an anthology was. I actually looked it up because I needed to know what it was. And I thought, well, that sounds good. But the book didn't stop there. So I'll tell you what the book was. We went through, every 2 weeks, we had a new theme. You could only use 20 to 80 words. Sometimes, depending on what it was, you might get to use 200 words. But the theme was maybe I heard his key go into the lock and turn. So that could be so many stories right there.
Oh, yeah.
But the one I did was, it's all about I don't want to tell you because it's such a good story. I want you to read it. But it's about my editor comes into the room and says, why do you lock the door? I'm here every time at this day on this time. I'm going to get the manuscript from you. Why do you lock the doors? But just going through the story of that, it was a lot of fun. You could tell I'm laughing about it. It was so much fun. So we have all these stories in this book. She puts it together. It's this great book. It's on Amazon, and it's called The Gift and Other Stories. But the best thing about it, all proceeds from the book goes to a nonprofit, the Haley Sue Foundation. I thought that was fabulous. Are you kidding me? You get to write this amazing book with all these other amazing authors, and then it goes to this nonprofit. And I did my first anthology, which is called Miracles, Experienced by Ordinary People, because I want people to know that miracles still happen, not because you're a pope, not because you're some real religious person, but because miracles happen every day around you. And that was really good. And I thought, I really want to do one that benefits a nonprofit. So I started with the giving book. I want everything about that book to be giving. I give it to the authors for free. I don't charge them to go in it. We give to the readers. Hopefully the readers read it and then give to other people by telling them what they found. We want to give value into the people who get this book. It's laying at the doctor's office. They have these short little stories they can read, or these beautiful, beautiful photographs and artwork they can look at. Yeah. And then all of the profits from Amazon and from the books that I sell go to the Idaho Youth Ranch in Boise, Idaho.
Wow.
But the authors can still sell the book and make a profit themselves because it's their book.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. LS, we are ramping it up. We've actually, believe it or not, we didn't have enough time today. Do me a favor. We have to do this again, right? We have to do this again.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you about 30 to 45 seconds. Tell us about why somebody should, and I'm going to throw your website going across, right? So connect with LS at writers2readers.com. So you have your commercial ready, go.
So writers2readers.com is more than just putting out a book. It's finally getting your story, your message to the public, to those who want to hear about it. But if you haven't written it, or if you've want it out there but you're not sure what to do, I also go through guiding you, because it's all about giving value to the reader, and you have great value. Your value comes from inside you. All these experiences that you've had are your value. It's not what you do or who you do it for. And that's where your worth comes from. You are worthy. And that value and that worth makes you enough just the way you are. And that is why you matter. And that is what people want to hear. They want to hear your voice. They want to hear your message. So let's get it out there. Let's get that story written, get that book published. And I help you through the whole process, the writing, the publishing, editing, all of that. So it's a fun way to do it. I love it. If I can get you what you want from this book, but get it to the people it's really made for, then I've done my job. That's what it's about. It's just sharing with people your story.
Love it. Love it. LS, we only unpacked a tiny little bit of that onion. There's so much more that we can do.
We
I'm
are big
thrilled that
onions.
I'm thrilled that you took the time out today, and really, really appreciate
Thank you
you.
so much. I'm so honored to be on your show, Sifu, and thank you to those who came and made their comments, Mandy and Emilio. I saw you, Emilio, and
Yeah,
Dr. Reed.
yeah,
I just really appreciate it. And to you, the audience, thank you for taking the time
yeah.
out of
And
your
if you
day.
watch it on the replay, hit hashtag and put some comments in there.
Yeah,
You touched
absolutely.
upon so many things that, oh my God, I want to talk more. So we'll have to do this again another time and maybe unpack some of those things you told us.
Oh,
We will have fun though.
yes, we will.
LS, thank you. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
Sifu.
you. Have a
Really
beautiful rest
appreciate
of
it.
your day. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, thank you for being here with us, and we will see you